The Arabian Peninsula. Arabia is the largest peninsula in the world. The Arabs call it Jazirat al-Arab, which means the island of Arabia, although it is not an island, being surrounded by water on 3 sides only. Lying in the southwest of Asia, the Arabian Gulf is to its east, which was known to the Greeks as Persian Gulf. The Indian Ocean marks the southern limits. And to its west is Red Sea, which was called Sinus Arabicus or Arabian Gulf by the Greeks and Latins and Bahr Kulzum by the ancient Arabs. The northern boundary is not well defined, but may be considered an imaginary line drawn due east from the head of the Gulf of Al-Aqaba in the Red Sea to the mouth of the Euphrates. Arab geographers have divided the country into 5 regions. 1. Hijaz extends from Ayla, Al-Aqaba to Yemen and has been so named because the range of mountains running parallel to the western coast separates the low coastal belt of Tihama from Najd. 2. Tihama inside the Inkir range is a plateau extending to the foothills. 3. Yemen, south of Hijaz, occupies the southwest corner of Arabia. 4. Najd, the north-central plateau, extends from the mountain ranges of Hijaz in the west to the deserts of Bahrain in the east and encompasses a number of deserts and mountain ranges. 5. Uruz, which is bounded by Bahrain to its east and Hijaz to its west. Lying between Yemen and Najd, it was also known as Yamama. The land and its people. One of the driest and hottest countries of the world, 90% of Arabia is made up of barren desert. The geological and physical features of the land along with its climatic conditions have kept its population in the days gone by and also in the present time to the minimum and hindered the flowering of large civilizations and empires. The nomadic life of the desert tribes, rugged individualism of the people and unrestrained tribal warfare have tended to limit the settled population to the areas where there is abundance of rainfall or water is available on the surface of land in the shape of springs or ponds, or is found nearer the surface of the earth. The Bedouins dig deep wells in the ground. The way of life in Arabia is, so to say, dictated by the availability of water. Nomadic tribes continually move about in the desert in search of water. Wherever verdant land is found, the tribes go seeking pastures, but they are never bound to the land like the tillers of the soil. They stay over a pasture or oasis so long as they can graze their flocks of sheep, goats, and camels and then break up their camps to search out new pastures. Life in the desert was hard and filled with danger. The Bedouin felt bound to the family and to the clan on which depended his existence in the arid desert. Loyalty to the tribe meant for him the same lifelong alliance as others feel for the nation and state. His life was unstable and vagrant. Like the desert, he knew not ease nor comfort and understood only the language of power, of might. The Bedouin knew no moral code, no legal or religious sanction, nothing save the traditional sentiment of his own and the tribe's honor. In short, it was a life that always brought about hardship and trouble for him and sowed the seeds of danger for the neighboring sedentary populations. The desert tribes of Arabia were engaged in endless strife amongst themselves and made incursions into the settled lands around them. At the same time, the Arabs displayed a boundless loyalty to their tribes and traditions, were magnanimously hospitable, honored the treaties, were faithful friends, and dutifully met the obligations of tribal customs. All these traits of the Arab character are amply illustrated by their forceful and elegant literature, both in prose and poetry, proverbs, metaphors, simile, and fables. Cultural centers. In places where there were sufficient periodic rains or water was available in wells or springs, settlements used to spring up, or the nomads came together during seasonal fairs and festivals. While such get-togethers exerted a civilizing influence on the life of the Bedouins, the agricultural settlements reflected their specific characteristics depending on climatic conditions and economic and occupational features of the sedentary populations. Accordingly, Makkah had a peculiar cultural development, as had other settlements like Yathrib and Hira their own distinguishing cultural features. Yemen was culturally the most developed region in the country owing to its long history and political developments in the recent past. Because of its suitable climate, Yemen had made rapid strides in cultivation of cereals, animal husbandry, quarry of minerals, and construction of forts and palaces. It had commercial relations with Iraq, Syria, and Africa and imported different commodities needed by it. Cultural centers. In places where there were sufficient periodic rains or water was available in wells or springs, settlements used to spring up, or the nomads came together during seasonal fairs and festivals. While such get-togethers exerted a civilizing influence on the life of the Bedouins, the agricultural settlements reflected their specific characteristics depending on climatic conditions and economic and occupational features of the sedentary populations. Accordingly, Makkah had a peculiar cultural development, as had other settlements like Yathrib and Hira their own distinguishing cultural features. Yemen was culturally the most developed region in the country owing to its long history and political developments in the recent past. Because of its suitable climate, Yemen had made rapid strides in cultivation of cereals, animal husbandry, quarry of minerals, and construction of forts and palaces. It had commercial relations with Iraq, Syria, and Africa and imported different commodities needed by it. Ethnic divisions. Arab historians as well as old traditions of the land hold that the people of Arabia can be categorized in three broad divisions. The first of these were the Arab Ba'ida, extinct Arabs who populated the country but ceased to exist before the advent of Islam. The next were the Arab Ariba, Arabian Arabs, or Banu Qatan, who replaced the Arab Ba'ida, and the third were the Arab Musta'araba, Arabicized Arabs, or the progeny of Ishmael, which settled in Hijaz. The line of demarcation drawn according to racial division of the Arab stock makes a distinction between those descending from Qatan and Adnan. The former are held to be Yemenites or Southern Arabs, while the latter had settled in Hijaz. Arab genealogists further divide the Adnan into two subgroups which they term as Rabi'a and Madar. There had been a marked rivalry from the distant past between the Qatan and the Adnan, just as the Rabi'a and the Madar had been hostile to each other. However, the historians trace the origin of the Qatan to a remoter past from which the Adnan branched off at a later time and learned Arabic vernacular from the former. It is held that the Adnan were the offspring of Ismail, who settled in Hijaz after naturalization. Arab genealogists give great weight to these racial classifications, which also find a confirmation in the attitude of Iranians in the olden times. The Iranian general Rustam had admonished his courtiers who had derided Mughirabi, Shubieh, and looked down upon him for having presented himself as the envoy of Muslims in tattered clothes. Rustam had then said to his counselors, "You are all fools." The Arabs give little importance to their dress and food but are vigilant about their lineage and family. Linguistic unity. Multiplicity of dialects and languages should not have been at all surprising in a country so big as Arabia, actually equal to a subcontinent divided into north and south not only by the trackless desert, but also by the rivalry of kindred races and clannish patriotism of a passionate, chauvinistic type, affording but little opportunity for intermixing and unification of the country's population. The tribes living in the frontier regions close to Iranian and Byzantine empires were, quite naturally, open to influences of alien elements. All these factors have given birth to numerous languages in Europe and the Indian subcontinent. In India alone, 15 languages have been officially recognized by the Constitution of India, while there are still people who have to speak in an official language other than their own mother tongue or take recourse to English for being understood by others. But the Arabian Peninsula has had, despite its vastness and proliferation of tribes, a common language ever since the rise of Islam. Arabic has been the common lingua franca of the Bedouins living in the deserts as well as of the sedentary and cultured populations like the Qatan and Adnan. Some local variations in the dialects of various regions arising from differences of tones and accents, wide distances, and diversity of physical and geographical conditions could not be helped. Yet there has always been a linguistic uniformity which has made the Quran intelligible to all. It has also been helpful in the rapid diffusion of Islam to the far-flung tribes of Arabia.